So this is my review for The Amazing Spider-Man 2. Now, I really like the direction the first Amazing Spider-Man was going in, because I, like many, didn't want to see the same movie that I saw 12 years ago, and I think they remade it way too soon. I don't know what they're going for, if they're trying to fit this Spider-Man in with the new shared Marvel universe, but since this new Spider-Man franchise is owned by Sony, I don't think it fits into the Avengers. You're free to comment on that and correct me, but I pretty much think this is fitting into the new Marvel universe, but I'm not sure. But I really liked how the direction that the first Amazing Spider-Man was going in, because Andrew Garfield, he looks a lot like the Peter Parker that was designed by Stan Lee and Steve Ditko. He's tall, he's very wiry, he's nerdy, but he's nowhere near Tobey Maguire nerdy. I mean, Tobey Maguire took nerdy and awkward to a whole new level. I mean, he's just got this pointy chin and this kind of weird face. I mean, if there's any celebrity I don't want to be, it's Tobey Maguire, because the ladies do not like him at all very much. But anyways, so, and I kind of liked how he was in high school for the whole movie, because that did help spread the story out. Unlike the first Spider-Man, where everything was kind of fastly paced with the story and the plot, but you got to see more of Flash Thompson, and instead of Mary Jane Watson, the girlfriend was Gwen Stacy. Every Spider-Man fan and every true Marvel fan knows that Mary Jane was not his first girlfriend. At least one of his first girlfriends was Gwen Stacy, and Mary Jane came later. And they had the beautiful and talented Emma Stone playing Gwen Stacy. I can't remember the name of the actress that played Gwen Stacy in Spider-Man 3, which is just a terrible movie. But, I mean, Emma Stone, she's pretty enough to play Gwen Stacy, but they kind of went for kind of a different character, because Steve Ditko originally portrayed Gwen Stacy as kind of a mean girl, and in Ultimate Spider-Man, she was kind of portrayed as a kind of rock and roll goth chick. So I think this Emma Stone's Gwen Stacy is a combination of a lot of different kind of archetypes, and she's got a way different attitude and personality than the Gwen Stacy in the comics, who's pretty much the girl you just want to give flowers to. And yeah. And I like the whole thing they did with the lizard. But I'm going on way too much about Spider-Man, about the first Amazing Spider-Man, because I'm trying to compare it to the new one. Because I feel things went downhill with Amazing Spider-Man 2. Because Amazing Spider-Man 2 is not The Dark Knight, or even The Dark Knight Rises. And I feel it could have had that potential. So, because he's been Spider-Man for a while, and he's really built up this persona, and the people love him, and some people hate him. And they changed the costume, which kind of ticked me off at first, because the last one looked a lot like something a poor high school kid could put together, and the eyes resembled the original 1960s version. But they decided to take a step forward, and this new costume looks like it came straight out of the comics. And going into the story where Peter Parker is just graduating high school at the very beginning of the movie, when Stacy makes this speech and she's Oxford bound, and nerdy Jamie Foxx, which I was amazed that Jamie Foxx was able to pull off this nerdy guy. I mean, I'm not gay, but the ladies love Jamie Foxx, and I think it's amazing he pulled off that creepy nerd that was obsessed with Spider-Man and was like, "Oh, hey, Spider-Man, today's my birthday," and he had this like picture with a mirror on, and he pretend like he's right next to Spider-Man. The main problem that these movies are having, and it's going in that direction, they're making the supervillain origins seem way too easy, and they gotta make them more realistic. But one of the more so problems of Amazing Spider-Man is Emma Stone's Gwen Stacy, where in the second one, the last one, like I said before, she did come very close to the Gwen Stacy in the comics. In this one, she came off as more of this modern, cool girl hipster, and she's a scientific genius, and it might be a little far-fetched, and she was really just on and off again with Peter, and she just couldn't make up her mind, and it was just really weird how she kept changing her mind. And Andrew Garfield's sarcasticness just didn't execute it very well, and it came off very awkward because he was very sarcastic in the comics, and he sort of played on the villains in that way, but he just wasn't pulling it off too well. And while the special effects of Electro are really good, I don't feel like it's the best I've seen. And here's the main problem I have with the movie. Spoiler alert, if you haven't seen the movie, you might want to turn off your computer screen right now. So Norman Osborn dies at the beginning of the movie, and Harry Osborn takes over Oscorp, and Norman touched him and gave him this weird disease because Norman had this rare skin condition that was making his skin turn green. And him and Peter were friends when they were kids. But in the comics, they were friends. Well, they weren't friends originally, but it was established later on that they were friends. And in this one, he becomes the Green Goblin. I'll get more into that in a minute, but Harry now has this weird skin condition that's making his skin turn green, and he somehow finds out that Spider-Man got his powers from Oscorp, and he thinks that Spider-Man's blood can cure his disease. But Spider-Man is a total dick and doesn't even consider the idea. Because, he was dying anyways, like Harry Osborn said, and Spider-Man was unwilling to help him. And that led him to getting that weird green serum injected to him. He became this franchise's version of the Green Goblin. And I was really hoping if they were going to do the Green Goblin in this version, they go for the Ultimate Spider-Man design, where he kind of looked like the Incredible Hulk. But they cannot get the Green Goblin right. The last Green Goblin looked like a Power Ranger villain, and everyone was disappointed. And this Green Goblin looks like a mix of Billy Idol and the Wicked Witch of the West. It looked terrible. And so Electro eventually partners up with Harry Osborn, and they rampage throughout the city. And another spoiler alert: us comic fans have seen this coming for a long time, because this was the most shocking moment in comic book history, where the Green Goblin captured Gwen Stacy, threw her off the Brooklyn Bridge, and Spider-Man released his webs too soon, and Spider-Man snapped her neck. He thought it was the Green Goblin's fault, but really it was his fault. And I was wondering, since they were using Gwen Stacy in these movies, if they were going to kill her off. And when I saw the images of her in the green coat and the boots, she was wearing a similar outfit. It was very modernized. I don't know if it's a little far-fetched to say it looks kind of hipster. As I said, she's got this modern, cool little hipster look to her. Not quite the look she had in the comics. But anyways, instead of the Brooklyn Bridge, and they're on the Brooklyn Bridge for a scene, and it's a nice romantic love scene, like, oh, I'll follow you wherever you go to London, blah, 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 I'll fight crime there. And instead, it takes place in a clock tower, and the Green Goblin, which is Harry Osborn, throws her off this clock tower, and Spider-Man releases his webs, and just like in the comics, her body kind of arches kind of upward, and her neck snaps. And they got that imagery very close to how it was in the comics, only this time it wasn't on the Brooklyn Bridge. And feel free to comment to why it wasn't on the Brooklyn Bridge. I think they needed to just stretch the story out. But Electro, I mean, he wasn't a great villain. I mean, he could have been a much better villain. I mean, it's so cliched. The invisible the invisible coworker that nobody notices, that women don't like, and he becomes a super villain and gets these powers, and people start to notice him. And it's just that is so cliched, and I've seen it so many times before. And they could have had a much better non-Electro. And they should have stuck with the source material and had Norman Osborn be the Green Goblin. Because I don't even know if him and Harry Osborn are going to be friends now, since he is slightly responsible for killing Gwen. However, they weren't friends in the comics at first, but I really don't know what direction that's going to go, and I feel like they've really screwed up with the canon there. But if I'm wrong, you are free to comment. But I hear the next one's really going to focus on the pain that Peter Parker Spider-Man has felt in the midst of Gwen's loss. Because in the last one, her father died, just like in the comics. So they were going in a really good direction with the last Spider-Man. And everything just seemed so... Everything looked like it was going in such a good direction with the last Amazing Spider-Man. Everything just went downhill with Amazing 2. And it had so much potential to be better. And I've mentioned this on my Facebook account before. Why did they name it Amazing Spider-Man 2? I mean, how are future generations gonna know which Spider-Man 2 is which. One's got the blonde girl, one's got the redhead girl. But it's going to confuse future generations. I don't know why they could have... I was hoping they'd call it Spectacular Spider-Man or Ultimate Spider-Man or Sensational or something. But they're probably going to go the same route and call the next one Amazing Spider-Man 3. I don't know who's going to be the villain. And I'm curious to see who's going to play Mary Jane. And I wonder if she's going to come into the picture. However, another spoiler, Emma Stone has teased the return of Gwen Stacy. I don't know if it's going to be like the comics where with the Vulture and they had some like clone. I've never read those comics, but I've heard of them. That would take the franchise in a bad and just a very confusing direction. So I hope like they somehow bring Mary Jane into the picture and she's able to heal Peter's wounds. And what actress could play her? I don't know what actress could play her. And as I've said before, Hollywood's unpredictable, and they're doing so many unpredictable things nowadays. Don't be surprised if it's someone that doesn't measure up well to the character, but it's gotta be someone better than Kristen Dunst. Because Kristen Dunst, she had the role nailed right in the first one, but by the third one she was looking kind of pale and pudgy and just kind of like this laid back coffee house girl. She was just bringing the character of Mary Jane down, and I hope it's the actress they picked to play Mary Jane is someone that's close to how she is in the comics. And I was also unhappy with the Rhino having a robotic suit. That just didn't really make any sense. And I know they're planning a Sinister 6 movie, because at the end, someone please quote me on this. I don't know who Harry Osborn, the Green Goblin, was getting together with at the end of the movie. That guy with the weird hat. Because I think they're trying to form the Sinister Six, and they're going to make some Sinister 6 movie. Yeah, I'm not buying that. But seeing how Amazing Spider-Man 2 went, I just hope that Amazing Spider-Man 3 goes in a much better direction. Thank you. By the way, I know what you're thinking. This doesn't make sense. I got this thing, got this Superman tattoo. Yeah, well, sorry.